On the main SDS2 detailing station, we have across the top some of the main buttons that you're going to be using. We have our modeling, which is our 3D modeling space, where we'll create all of our grids and members and views. Our drawing editor, which is all of our 2D detailing and modifications to our drawings. Job contact properties. This is where we can go and add additional information for the job, like contact information and different items for the project. Initially, nothing is turned on in the modular custom properties. If we wanted to activate some job contact properties, we can go into our job or Fabricator options under the job setup, and we will go to our custom properties and say manage plugins. And here are our main job contact informations. So you can see that I can select the architect and activate. Maybe I want to also go ahead and bring up the contractor. I can activate those. When I'm done, I can say OK. And now in my job contact properties, I will see there is an information for the architect and for the contractor. I can provide information here for the contractor and the architect for this project. Project transfer allows me to pack and unpack our SDS2 projects. These create a .jft file extensions that you can then use to back up the projects, save to an external drive, or even provide a project to a customer or another coworker to work on the project. We will pick the actual job name that we want to pack. It's going to default to the one we're currently in. The directory location of where we want to output this to. I can simply browse and pick any location that I want. The packed file name, this is the name of the .jft file, and the packed job name. This is the name of the actual job inside the JFT file. So you could add a date to the packed file name, but leave the packed job name just the default job. Transfer options allows you to include information from your default directory like status configurations, plugins, and report files. This would be if you're providing to someone else off-site and you're not for sure if they have the same plugins and information for this version you're using. The extraction options allow you to use a drawing reduction, which just helps reduce the overall size of the project, so it only be used for backing up the project. Once you have a packed project, you can also unpack it from the same window. You would simply browse to the .jft file. Once selected, you can change the name that is actually being unpacked if you already have one with the same name on it. You can change the name or add a date to it when it unpacks. Simply hit the unpack button here once it's in there, and it will unpack into the project. At that point, you can hit the change project button and select it and change into it. The project information on the main menu allows you to see some basic information about your project. By default, we will not populate this information, but if you ever need it populated, you can hit refresh, and it'll go and check the information in the model and populate the values. Currently, it's set to all members in the project, which there are none, so everything is 0. But I can set it to only look in specific sequences if I have sequences set up. Some of these items in these tabs are custom properties that if you have activated and filled out will populate information. The report area right next to it is how we can run some of our system reports as well as user reports that you may have written or modified. The system tab is all the internal hard-coded reports. A majority of these have a user counterpart that can be opened and modified in Report Writer. You can design or load reports to modify using the design button here, and you can just simply select a report and say run to just run one from the list. The import-export section of the main menu is where we're going to see some of the familiar words that we saw in the first slides or two. We have our design link, model link, CNC, plotting, PDF drawing export, and drawing conversion. Drawing conversion is where we can generate 2D DXF, DWG, DGN files, as well as importing any of the DXF, DWG, or PDF 2D drawings so that we can use those for reference drawings or job standard details in Drawing Editor. The MRP interface is where we can pick the different export options for our different MRP or MIS type software. These include FabSuite, Strumis, FabTrol, standard KISS exports, EJE exports, etc. In the lower left of our main menu, we'll have our job and Fabricator options. These are going to be all of our basic setup options whenever we need to go and review what our options are. We have the Fabricator setup, job setup, and our concrete setup for some of our embeds and basic concrete information. Utility functions is where we can go and modify our change file sizes if we ever need to add more members to the project. You can also find tools like rename project items. If you copied setup from a project, it'll also copy the Fabricator name into the new project. If you wanted to change the name that displays for the Fabricator in this new project, you can simply select the rename project items and go ahead and select your Fabricator that you want to rename. Right now I only have a single Fabricator in this project, so I only have the one to modify. If I add multiple Fabricators in this project, the first one when I create it is the master Fabricator. I can have other Fabricators. This is not common, but it can be done where you can have multiple Fabricators stored in the same project. Also on your utility functions is the verify and fix job. If you ever get an error in SDS2 and it forces you to abort out of the project, we recommend that you run a verify and fix to make sure we can unlock and verify the files in the project. In the lower right of the main menu is our Resource Center. This is where we can find links to common areas you may need to go. This home icon is the SDS2 main website. The text bubbles is our forums through our support page. The Facebook icon is our SDS2 Facebook page. The pencil and paper is our release notes, where you can go and look at what has been fixed and what has been added for each major release. The person symbol here with the headset is chat with support. This allows you to start a chat with the SDS2 support personnel. To the right of that is what support uses often, GoToMeetings. This allows us to see your screen to better understand the situation you're running into. To the right of that is the help file. This is called documentation. If I click on this, it'll bring up the main help file. Any help file you select will start at a page that represents where you clicked it from. So if I go to documentation here, this goes back to the main help page. I can click on different ideas, search by indexes if I know the keyword I want to look for. I can also do topics and look for information. Here's some topics for new users, user interface. Things I can look at are like a connection guide to get an idea of what type of beam splice options I have. You also have a search field in the upper right. You can search for a specific word or a phrase amongst the entire help. Lastly, there's the About or the information for SDS2. This provides you with basic information on the product you're using, your Windows operating system, and basic contact information for SDS2. You can see the email for support, the support hotline, a fax number, and a mailing address to get a hold of us.